Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. The Democratic Republic of Congo continues to be embroiled in political controversy. The main opposition coalition is calling for people to reject Joseph Kabila as the nation's legitimate president after he remained in office past Monday's elected mandate. Emily Eob has more from Kinshasa.
This week in Kinshasa, protesters used whistles to make a political statement to the president.
The meaning of the whistle is to say that Joseph Kabila's mandate has ended. It is the end of the game for him, and it's the end of his rule.
Earlier, opposition leader Etienne Tshisekedi called on Congolese to protest peacefully against a deal struck last October between the ruling party and a small part of the opposition to keep Kabila in office until delayed polls can be held in 2018. On Monday, the last day of Kabila's elected mandate, his team confirmed the president will remain in office but denied that he was trying to cling to power.
President Kabila affirmed that he will abide by the constitution, and he will. Had he wanted to change the constitution and become president for life, like many have done in the region, he would have done it.
But some don't buy it. Over the last few months, protesters and security forces have clashed, leaving dozens of people dead. Public protests have not been banned. From Monday, social media have been blocked and security forces are heavily deployed throughout the city. Closed shops, no public transport, Kinshasa turned into a ghost town. Sporadic clashes erupted and arrests could be seen in several neighborhoods.
We were using our freedom and right to protest, and we don't know what made the security forces do what they did. They were following people in their homes, forcing them to open their doors to get in. We're scared for these people, scared of what will happen to them.
The UN is investigating reports of at least 20 people killed. The capital city is known to be a stronghold of the opposition, but Kabila still has some supporters.
He's a young president who speaks well and knows how to negotiate. He's calm. He brought peace to our country.
Last week, the Catholic Church stepped in a last-ditch effort to try to bring together the main political players around a deal to end the crisis. Originally meant to end a week ago, the talks are still underway. Emily Eob for VOA News in Kinshasa.
Well, for more insight on the unfolding situation in the DRC, I'm joined by Kambale Musavuli, the national spokesperson of the advocacy group Friends of the Congo. He's also a native of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Well, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we know that the latest reports we have is that at least 20 people were killed between Monday and Tuesday during those protests. The question is, some are wondering, is this the best way, going to the streets to confront security forces?
This is a step for the Congolese population to use civil disobedience to actually put pressure on the system on the ground right now. With the Kabila staying in power beyond his constitutional term limits. You are seeing on one hand you have the police with weapons shooting at civilians while they are simply protesting. So they have not found other radical means to actually put pressure. This has been in the core of the Congolese population for decades, that they put in that
September,
form of pressure. 17
people were killed, and that just went by like that. And some are saying, well, there was kind of some talks going on here. For those like you who are so far away from Kinshasa, it might be easier to tell people to go to the streets and protest. But for those who are there, these are traumatizing experiences. How long will it take to continue dying, being maimed, in order to achieve those objectives?
But I do think that this actually is the sentiment of the population to go out in the street, because they have not seen the aspiration actually reflected in the current government. But what is the situation right now? We have a president who's been in power for 15 years, and he has had 2 presidential terms included in those 15 years. And he has actually disrespected the Congolese population. So the population, very peacefully, non-violently, are going to the street and saying, we won't change, and we want you to step down at the end of the constitutional term. But the response is met by shutting off of the social media networks, of different ways of communication, and also sending the security forces. The discussion should be, how do we hold the security forces who are maiming and killing the population accountable so that we don't have much more death? Not condemning the population that is actually expressing their aspiration for a better and new Congo.
Understanding how the Democratic Republic of Congo works, and perhaps some of those countries around the Great Lakes region, do you think they're too powerful? They have so much control that the population really is helpless, despite of efforts to demonstrate on the streets.
And this goes actually along the side of the African continent as a whole. I don't believe that Congolese people can be free without the African continent to be free. So when Congolese are actually mobilizing and organizing, I was hoping, for example, for the African Union to step in and be a voice of reason around this crisis. The African Union has not played that role when it comes to the Congo's crisis. And when we look also at in the region, we're seeing constant reminder that we have leaders who do not want to leave power. When we look at Angola, we look at Burundi, we look at Rwanda and Uganda, we're seeing the same system there.
Yeah. Now, Kabila, his diplomatic advisor, just said that he doesn't want to stay in power for too long, but they've had this agreement with some opposition parties, and also the court has said there are no circumstances right to hold an election. So isn't he a bit different than those who are trying to extend their term in power indefinitely?
His situation is actually premeditated. I wish even today, even yesterday, that Kabila went on national TV to speak to the population. He has disappeared. We do not know where he is. He's not speaking to the population. In 2011, there was a social agreement that he had with the Congolese people. I'm going to be in power for 5 years, right? He has done everything in his power from that time to now not to organize elections. There were very many times that he could have done so. There is no explanation of why the election has not been organized timely, but only promises. So this is actually not even a discussion to have about why he's still in power.
Very quickly, in a few seconds. So what's the best way forward without shedding blood?
Two things. Kabila should step down, and two, there should be a transitional government led by people who will take us to the elections. But the people expect to see some change with his disappearance in that office of the presidency.
All right. We hope you'll speak soon. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, Kambale Musabuli, he's the national spokesperson of the advocacy group Friends of the Congo. To West Africa now, Gambian President Yahya Jammeh remains defiant and says he will not step down as the nation's leader. He's also condemning mediation attempts by the West African regional bloc ECOWAS that aims to get him to leave power after he lost the December 1st election to Adama Barrow. President Jammeh made the comments on state television late Tuesday, reaffirming his ardent stance. He has resisted any overtures to hand over power at the end of his mandate on January 18th, when President-elect Barrow is due to be inaugurated. Jammeh says he is not a coward and will not be intimidated into stepping down. Jammeh initially accepted the results of the election before reversing course. He is accused by human rights groups of the detention, torture, and killing of perceived opponents during his 22-year rule. Well, a massive manhunt is underway in Germany Wednesday for a Tunisian man suspected of being involved in Monday's deadly truck attack at a Berlin Christmas market. Police searched a shelter for migrants in West Germany, where the suspect is believed to have lived, actually. Now, meanwhile, authorities have released a Pakistani national, the initial suspect in the attack, saying they did not have enough evidence to charge him with a crime. The Islamic State terrorist group is claiming responsibility for the carnage in which 12 people were killed. VOA's Laditza Hoke has more details.
Berlin's landmark Brandenburg Gate was illuminated in the colors of the German national flag and the colors of the City of Berlin flag Tuesday night. Victims were honored with a memorial service and a candlelight vigil at the site of the crash.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, not 2 hours before, I stood exactly at the spot where the truck drove in. I've been coming here since I was little, and I have such beautiful memories of the place.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel, accompanied by senior government officials, visited the scene of the attack and laid flowers at a makeshift shrine for the victims. She said she doesn't have a simple answer as to why someone would would want to bring death to people who are out celebrating life.
All I know is that we can't and do not want to live without all of that. The Christmas markets, the happy hours with friends and families outside on our squares. We don't want to have to live with fear that paralyzes us. Even if it's difficult at this hour, we will find the strength to live life the way we want to live it in Germany. Free, united, and openly.
German officials say the attack was intentional. An American tourist witnessed it.
As I looked up, this truck was barreling through the market and through the stalls and through the crowd, coming almost at me.
The truck was stowed away Monday to be thoroughly examined for clues. The crash in Berlin bore strong similarities to a truck attack in the French coastal city of Nice in July that killed 86 people and wounded hundreds of others. U.S. officials and others have expressed condolences to Germany and are calling for adequate security measures in their own countries during the holiday season. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, nearly 30,000 residents of the capital of the Central African Republic are still living outside the city's airport. The displaced persons camp sprung up in 2013 as people sought protection from rebel groups and intercommunal violence. Now, 3 years later, the president of the country is urging the remaining residents to, in his words, go home for Christmas. That may be easier said than done. Zach Badoff has our report.
At its peak, the Mpoko airport camp housed over 100,000 people seeking the protection of international troops as fighting between rival militia engulfed their neighborhoods in the capital. Much of the city is peaceful now, but the camp remains. Leocadia Guiando takes us to her old neighborhood, just a 20-minute walk away. Militia destroyed her home during the fighting. She shows us where her brother lives. She wants to leave the airport camp too, but can't afford the rent. Her husband got sick while living in the camp and died.
I don't have any financial help. I want to leave the camp because we're living there like animals. We sleep on the ground. We don't have any beds. There are many illnesses there. We need to leave to live a comfortable life.
She is not alone. The country is still recovering from the conflict, and many of the people left at the camp are those who have yet to find jobs. And the crisis has inflated prices.
Before, rent was about $10. Now the same house is $13. A house that costs $13 per month is now $25. So we need to struggle to have a new life. It's not going to be easy.
The government says the camp must be closed because of health issues and security concerns, given the camp's proximity to the airport. Some refugees may be relocated to transit camps.
We are starting this program with the little money that we have, but we have the word of the international community that once the refugees are relocated, once they go back to their neighborhoods, they are going to have support.
The government stresses that it will respect the dignity and international human rights of the displaced people. The process may take time.
I don't think that both the humanitarian and the government joining forces will have the capacity to drive out of the site all the people at once. No, it's something that will go at some pace until the site is emptied. For me, it has been too long, to be honest with you.
The government has not yet set a deadline for when the camp must be cleared, but has encouraged the camp's residents to go home in the coming week. Zach Badorf for VOA News, Bangui.
Well, Mexican authorities are sifting through the torched remnants of a fireworks market Wednesday, trying to figure out what caused the massive explosion near Mexico City that killed at least 31 people Tuesday and injured at least 70 others. The San Pablito market in the city of Tultepec, about 30 kilometers north of the capital, was packed with shoppers buying fireworks for traditional Christmas and New Year parties. Emergency crews needed to wait several hours until the explosions died down before they could search the site for victims. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto tweeted his condolences to the families of those killed and hopes for a speedy recovery for those who were hurt. Blasts and fires at the same market also destroyed a number of stalls in 2005 and 2006. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, how are OPEC countries coping with falling oil prices? Stay with us.
News and notes. This is Living Better.
An apartment in Cairo. It's where some Egyptians are turning to the fabled healing powers of salt, a remedy as old as the pharaohs. For a small fee, this home-built salt cave offers patrons an opportunity to meditate and relax. It has a ceiling and floors coated with salt, candlelight, and calming music. Mobile phones, they get left at the door. This customer says that when he enters the cave, he finds his negative energy goes away, absorbed, so to speak, by the salt around him, giving him inner peace. Goma Al-Gouri is owner of the salt cave. Al-Gouri says his cave can boost medical tourism in Egypt and that Poland, Finland, the United States, and other countries have also introduced salt rooms or even salt hotels. He also offers salt massages and salt baths. It's all in a day's rest. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
Welcome back. The OPEC Secretary General says 2016 was a bad year for the oil industry. But is Mohamed Barkinda optimistic about 2017? We find out in this week's One-on-One with Peter Cloty.
So currently, what would you say is the global trend of the oil output?
The oil industry moves in cycles of boom and bust, unfortunately. And historians count this cycle either the 6th or 7th, depending on who you talk to. But out of all these cycles, this current cycle that started in 2014, November 2014, to date, has been the most severe. Prices have crashed by as much as 80%. Companies have folded up in hundreds as a result of that. Investments in the industry have also contracted severely, going to the third consecutive year now. In 2015, globally, investment contracted by nearly 26%. And this year, we are projecting about 22% of global contraction in investments. And this is a source of worry, concern, not only to the industry, but to the global community, because it's threatening future supplies.
Now, let's look at Nigeria. It's had problems with its oil output because of vandalism and the destruction of infrastructure by some the government called hoodlums. What do you think can be done to resolve this once and for all?
Well, government is already doing everything they can. I have met just this last week with Minister Emmanuel Kachiku of Nigeria in Vienna. And of course, this was one of the first questions I asked him, how far at home? And he assured me that government is focused and doing everything possible, including behind the scenes negotiations and consultations with leaders from these communities in order to restore peace and stability that will allow normal operations of oil and gas to resume and recover the lost capacity and production that Nigeria had suffered these past years.
So what do you see as the future of the oil industry in Latin America, particularly in strong oil-producing countries such as Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, and Venezuela?
Countries such as Mexico have been facing reductions in terms of their producibility. They are also facing natural declines in their reservoirs, but they have been very cooperative with OPEC. We have met with Mexico this last Saturday in Vienna, and they have played a very constructive role in joining hands with us to take the right decisions of supply management that we believe will restore stability in the market.
Venezuela and OPEC were able to agree in lowering the production of oil by Venezuela. This after the South American nation has struggled to keep up with production. What is the purpose of this deal, and how could the increase in oil prices registered in the last few weeks affect the deal or the impact on Venezuelan production? Briefly.
Venezuela, if you recall, is a founder member of OPEC. The very idea of setting OPEC emanated from Venezuela through a distinguished visionary leader they had called Perez Alfonso, who sold the idea of setting up OPEC to other founder members. And they have continued to play a very leading role in OPEC. And this time around, since the beginning of this cycle, President Nicolas Maduro, whom I met recently in Caracas, together with his able minister Del Pino, have been in the forefront in trying to build consensus both within OPEC and outside OPEC, which are bore fruit by the agreement that we reached not only ourselves as OPEC on the 30th of November, but with 11 non-OPEC countries on Saturday, the 10th of December.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, in Wednesday's business news, the Bank of Nigeria is making more of an effort to eliminate the currency black market. With more details and a quick update on U.S. markets, here, Africa 54's business correspondent Jill Malandrino reporting from the NASDAQ market site in New York.
Good afternoon, and just before we get into African business news, I want to point out that U.S. markets are open essentially flat at around 10 a.m. Eastern this morning. The key, though, is the Dow Jones Industrial Average as we continue to flirt with that 20,000 level. That's really what we're going to be focused on in terms of the U.S. markets. Let's switch gears to talk about Nigeria, as the central bank will try to eliminate the currency black market, where the Naira trades about 40% below the official rate against the dollar. Nigeria's finance minister said this on Tuesday. Now, as has been the case, the once omnipresent money changers are going underground. They've become the latest target of authorities desperate to bolster the Naira and crush a black market for foreign currency that's boomed since the crash in oil prices, because that strangled the inflow of dollars and battered the economy. Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, is dependent on oil exports. It's in its first recession in 25 years as low global crude prices are taking their toll. Now, intelligence agents are threatening to jail anyone who doesn't comply with this new rule. Here's the issue to the broader economy. Nigeria's interbank market sets the Naira's official value, and that's meant to serve businesses. But the scarcity of foreign currency has forced many to go to licensed bureaus to change the unofficial or black market of informal street traders, both of which sell dollars at a higher rate. So stock and bond investors are staying away from Nigeria, pointing to the wide gap between the official exchange rate and the black market. The Naira is traded around 305.5 Naira to the dollar on the official interbank market since August, while it was quoted at 487 to the dollar on the parallel market on Monday. Forward prices suggest the Naira will depreciate further on the official market, with 12-month contracts trading at 441 against the greenback. Now, here's the issue overall as it relates to the consumer. Nigeria does not need to have too weak or too strong of a currency. The society needs a stable currency anchored on a healthy economy and stable political environment. The economy lacks what it takes to sustain the current value of the Naira against the dollar, the euro, the pound, and other hard currencies, and that's where it translates into more expensive prices for the consumer. From the NASDAQ market site in New York, I'm Jill Malandrino, and this is Africa 54 Business News.
Well, thanks a lot, Jill. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. December's most anticipated film takes on a special meaning for one happy couple. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In the DRC, UN officials fear that at least 20 people are dead in Kinshasa after violent demonstrations calling for President Joseph Kabila to resign. We stay in the DRC, where Congolese opposition head Etienne Tshisekedi calls on citizens and foreign countries to no longer recognize Joseph Kabila as president. In Nigeria, continuing foreign exchange issues are damaging the country's air travel sector. In Kenya, American entrepreneur Ashley Company sells holidays with a social responsibility, providing her clients with one day to interact with underprivileged girls in Africa. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's one is trending. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, soared to the top of the weekend box office as expected, scoring the second best December opening ever with $155 million in estimated ticket sales. After the biggest Thursday night debut of the year, the intergalactic adventure blasted past industry expectations for a $130 million weekend, according to Sunday studio estimates. Rogue One opened at number one in all markets globally. The record setter, though, was Star Wars: The Force Awakens, the space saga's seventh installment, and that movie debuted to $248 million in the US and Canada last year. Now, two Star Wars fans will always remember the big debut of Rogue One because they got engaged at the movie theater. With an assist from Darth Vader, Sean Culquhoun proposed to his girlfriend, Genevieve Hartney, in front of excited Star Wars fans at the TCL Chinese Theater in LA before the first sold-out showing of Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Luckily, she said yes. Would have been embarrassing if she didn't. And finally, one small fire department's unique Christmas card is going viral. The Durant Fire Department in the southern state of Oklahoma is getting national attention with theirs, featuring 6 new fire station babies, all born this year. The photos were taken back in October, and the Christmas card and the story behind it have had hundreds of shares and thousands of likes on social media from all over the country since it was posted. The families say they hope to do a senior photo back at the station when the kids graduate high school. They are super, super cute. And that, of course, is what is trending this Wednesday. Vincent, back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Haiti. And that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords, where we talk about words in the news.
This short word can mean big trouble.
Chaos. Lawmakers return to Washington with urgent domestic priorities like extending federal spending authority and averting another government shutdown, but with an increasingly wary eye towards conflict and chaos from Eastern Europe to the Middle East.
Chaos is the opposite of orderly.
It means a place is very disorganized or a complete mess. It is a place in which events or behavior are not under control. Not a good thing.
So the next time you hear the word chaos, you will know what this news word means, and you can use it in a conversation.